We just finished our Fallout 2D20 story arc, and today we're talking more about Fallout 2D20, the sessions we just played, and if we'd like to play more of it. Welcome to Campaigns and Coffee. Grab your mug and let's dive into tales of adventure and the answers to your quirkiest of questions. So, we just finished our, 6 sessions or so of Fallout 2D20. It's hard to remember because there was just a tiny little 4-month or so break between the next to the last and the last session. It's been almost a year in the making. If you could all dig back into your brains, into your long-term memory, very long-term memory, what did you think of the system? What did you like the most here?
System-wise, every time that we play a 2D20 system, I'm liking it more and more. It's growing on me very, very quickly, which, I mean, it's a good thing. I love using the perks and stuff like that, and felt very true to the game, like the actual video game, while still being a tabletop game, which was, I mean, probably at the point of it. That's what they were trying to go for. So I think they did a good job. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Cool. Aaron, how about you?
The 2D20, but the mechanics of a game don't matter as much to me as always the setting that we're working in. How it all pulls together to make you feel like you're really involved in what you're doing, in the landscape and the placement, if you will.
A slightly different question for you as a follow-up on that one is, you actually haven't really played Fallout very much. Did you get a sense of the setting as we played, or did the system help with that setting for you at all?
No, I mean, rules usually don't matter to me, actually. It's the GM that makes or breaks a setting, and it always has been.
Got it. Ken, how about you?
See, I'm trying to think of all the 2D20 games that I've actually played. So I guess the last time we played one of these was Tales from the Loop, right? Tales from the Loop is also 2D20?
No. Tales from the Loop is...
Oh, because that's Modifius.
Fallout is Modifius, and Tales from the Loop is
Free League. Sorry.
Free League. Yeah. Dreams and Machines was...
Yeah.
There you go. So I've read a lot of 2D20 systems, but I haven't actually played a lot of 2D20 systems because I keep getting them all confused in my head. I guess what I liked the most from a mechanics perspective was the action points. Like, I mean, I'm a sucker for fate points and all of those kinds of dynamic systems where you're role playing and taking actions and like kind of the bartering piece of it, right? I love that because I think it pulls out some of the role playing in people, and it also, it feeds into it. Like Josh was just an action point generating machine.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know that I would have enjoyed this mechanic as much if we didn't perpetually have as many points. But like the idea that, there were times when we were low and it's like, do you want to push your luck to be able to get more dice? And it's like, yes, I do. Right. And so to that, I think that helps inform like what's the nature of your character, because your character is always going to be pushing things. Steve Newgunner wanted to get his new Ray 3000 back, and he would do anything to do it. So yes, he will always take the deal because he's always going to want to roll more dice. So I really liked the pool, and I thought that I don't know that it necessarily reinforced the Fallout piece, but I think it gives you an opportunity to reinforce your character.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I will say that is one thing when we made our characters. This is probably one of the first games that I went into, and I was like, I really want to really push this game to the limit and see if I could break this system. Which is why I was like, they have this luck system here, and I was like, there's never been a character that I have I'm going to go all in on what everybody else considers a dump stat.
Yeah.
And we're just everything else about me is just going to stink except for the one thing that he's going to be good at. And I want to see if I can break this game or if it handles it well. And seeing as luck was kind of the thing that was in this game that I don't think I've ever seen in many other games at all, that I was like, all right, let's test this and let's see if we can break it a little bit.
I've seen things similar to luck, but never as a stat. It's always some sort of currency sort of thing. And it was a currency because you had whatever your stat was, that's how many luck points you had. And they only refresh at the end of a quest. But at the same time, you could use a luck point to use your luck as the stat instead of some other stat. You're trying to leap across the chasm, and you have to make a a strength roll to do it. And you could instead go, well, I only have a 3 strength, so I'm going to spend a luck point and use my 10 luck instead and give myself a little bit better of a chance. I liked the system. I think having played numerous Fallout games since the isometric days and Wasteland before that, like the setting always spoke to me. Also coming from a guy who really loves Gamma World. I really liked that. But I think the way that they set up the 2D20 system with, like, especially the perks and such, really started to feel a lot like Fallout 4. Like one of the things that I like with this game is all the perk cards that I picked up a copy of the perk cards, and they look like the art. They pretty much are the art right out of the Fallout 4 game, because I know they've got the ability to use that. But at the same time, I was able to take some of these cards and like give them to Aaron, Nurse 17. So it's like, oh, I have this perk. What does it mean? So rather than write down everything, you just have the card. And I like all of those little different systems that are in Fallout for like scavenging and, repairing and modding your weapons. Like all of those different systems that were in Fallout 4 are also in the Fallout 2D20 system. And I liked that a lot.
By the way, thank goodness that we had a PDF version of the rule book, because trying to sort through like which perk pertains like to which attribute would have been like super hard otherwise. I think there's a lot of perks in there that you get to choose from, and like trying to find ones that I could actually use were difficult because all of my stats are low except for one.
Yep.
So I had to specifically look for the ones that actually focused on luck, and that was not easy to do because I don't even know exactly how many there are in here, but there's a lot of pages of perks in there. So
let me give you somewhat of an idea. Now, some perks have more than one level. So the thing that I'm about to show you is thicker because of that. But this is the perk deck, and it's a good 2 inches thick of cards. It's like 3 decks of 52 card playing cards, maybe 4. It's pretty thick, and I would say it's probably 100 cards worth of, I don't know about 100 perks, but it's a lot. There's a lot of perks in the game because there's several for each stat. But your criticism there leads right into the next question I have, which is, what didn't you like about the game?
I don't think too many choices is necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying it was nice to be able to hit Control F and just search luck, and just it made searching for perks that I could take easier do it that way.
Or things that you could not necessarily didn't like, as in like I hated this thing, but like things that you'd like to see improved or smoother or anything along those lines.
If you do not have Fallout dice, it makes the game a little harder to start moving around. Like you had to constantly tell me where I was actually hitting the thing because I didn't have the Fallout dice that told me the location that I would hit them in. So there's a little bit of a you probably want to have the actual Fallout dice, and having those cards probably helps out tremendously as well. Things like you need a lot of the proprietary stuff to make the game flow as smoothly as you would like it to. That's probably one of the small criticisms that I have, but outside of that, I really liked it. I had a lot of fun.
In order to use normal dice, you'd have to have those charts in front of you all the time. Yep. And there is a chart for a D20 to convert to hit location, but it's so much easier to just roll it and read what the die says. And having the perk cards was very nice as well on my side of things as well. And I would find it more difficult. I would agree with you without having those things. They're not essential, but they're certainly very nice to have. How about you, Aaron?
Same, having to have the special dice, which I did have, but I didn't like having to have those because I think it slowed things down, but at the same time, I understand why it was part of combat, because not every dice roll equals damage. There's a different distribution of damages.
Yeah. I don't think it ever happened, but it is entirely possible to roll no damage if you hit. And with all sorts of old and unreliable weapons, that does kind of make sense. Old ammunition, whatever. How about you, Ken?
I was okay on the perk side. I think I typically, whenever I'm playing these games, I always have a cheat sheet for my characters where I put all of the feat or perk or whatever information. I think having the cards there would help keep it like sort of front of mind, but I don't know that it's really essential in that regard. The dice were certainly helpful, and they were nice hefty dice too. So getting the starter set just to have the dice was, I think, a good move.
I would agree. Yeah.
You know, the dice on their own are kind of expensive, but the starter set's not that much more. So I think if you want the dice, having the starter set and having it as a reference guide worked out pretty well. I know from sort of our reading that we were doing early on, like Modifius occasionally has editing issues. I don't think I encountered too many of them in the Fallout 2D20. The other thing, it's not so much a thing I didn't like, or maybe it's a thing for what changes would you like to see, but there's a lot of mechanical stuff that we didn't necessarily do because it was, 5-6 episode arc, right? So we didn't really get into the survival building or like scrapping as an important thing, right? Where I think in order to pull that off in a shorter term game, and I was thinking about this for a con game I'd like to run at some point, like you'd literally just have to like crawl out of the ditch with nothing but like, I don't know, a screwdriver.
Yeah.
And then suddenly everything that you got would become very important. Every last bullet would be important. And I think what we did was fine. Steve spent his whole time looking for his laser gun that he lost. But I think it's hard to pull on that unless you're playing a longer game.
Yep. I think if we return to it, Steve will probably be scrounging more because the laser gun basically only has 1 or 2 cells.
Right. Right.
And you're like, oh no, we need more stuff. And given the way it ended, who knows what kind of equipment you're going to start with if we play it again.
Right.
I was very glad to see that the editing and such was much better than it had been in the initial release of Dreams and Machines. Fallout has been out for 3-5 years now, so I know they've gone through several sets of revisions. I think having the PDF was really good. I don't have a physical copy of the book. I did print out some of the pages of PDF. I think the more we would play it, the less I would need the book, and I think that's the case for every game. Perks are a lot like feats or spells in D&D. You obviously don't have to have the cards. They are nice, but there's a reason why people put out spell cards.
Right.
I did the same thing for Shadow Darks. I agree with you with all the other systems. Running a game for recording like this is different than running it for just friends. And running a short arc, we didn't touch on all the systems. I kind of wanted to. I wanted to get into the scrapping. I wanted to get into the modding and other things like that. But it just wasn't long enough. I think that's really would come into play in longer term play. The special dice, there's a lot of games that are doing special dice, and I understand why companies do it. I'm glad that they had the chart for the non-special dice in the book as well, because not everybody's going to have those, especially when they ran out for a while.
I liked building that cheat sheet was very handy for that too. I just had that one page constantly up on my screen over here where it was just like, okay, if I roll a 3 or a 4, I know it's a blank, so I know I could just get rid of those. And 1 and 2 mean this, and 5 and 6 mean this, and then this is what I could do with luck points constantly up there.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
it was helpful.
And so everybody knows what I did for what Josh is talking about with the cheat sheet, if I'm understanding correctly, is I went through the book and went, what tables or what sections would be most useful in our play? What do we want instant access to? And so I went through and I actually screenshotted parts of the PDF and made a new PDF with just those sections that people could take a look at, and just instantly look up if they needed something. So let's go ahead and switch from here to the game itself. What was your favorite moment in the game?
Very end, where I had to try to figure out what letters were in the right order, and that Pip-Boy little mini game, that was my favorite part, like hands down.
I think anything involving Nurse Handy. Nurse Handy was hilarious. I think it was very much in keeping, Aaron, with the whole like Fallout vibe of like, yep, of course, there's this robot that survived for however many hundreds of years, and of course she still has goldfish crackers, and of course like she's taking care of the children, even if her definition of children may have warped over time. So I think that added to the Fallout. I also say Chris isn't here, but his ghoul was great, because that was another one of those, like, I think he played it similar to how you see the ghouls in the TV series. So I think that, or in the game.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I thought we had a really good, I liked the dynamic of the different characters, but Nurse Handy definitely, like, I just, in my mind, I could just envision, like, we're in the middle of something, and then all of a sudden she's just floating over and being like, goldfish crackers? Did you eat today? You look like your nose is running, right? And it's like, of course that would happen while, like, there's bullets flying at us, right? Like,
yeah, you didn't have to worry about getting scolded by her.
Yeah. How about you, Aaron?
Couple of things. Nurse Sandy had a little chat with her star student about throwing grenades that made him feel guilty. I think what mostly iconically stuck out in my mind and feels very Fallout was Nurse Handy stringing teddy bears all over her chassis.
Yep. Although it did have a little bit of a
it was creepy.
Serenity. It had a little bit of a Serenity vibe with strapping up bodies to the hull of Serenity.
Right.
Oh.
Also a big fan of Serenity, so I can see that.
So what changes would you like to see if we played? Or what sort of goals? Yeah, what changes would you like to see? Or maybe what sort of goals would you like to see either out of character or for your character?
Me or anybody, I guess.
Any of you at this point, because kind of sprung this one on you.
Oh, man.
New goals.
I don't know if we were to play again, I don't know if I'd want to play as Lucky Buck again.
Really? Why is that?
He's fun and he's a nice action point generator. I don't know. He wasn't my favorite character to play because it was more. He's just. I have to figure out in every situation how am I going to have him flub this up but still be insanely lucky enough to get through it, and trying to make things. I felt like I was forcing a lot of the like. Oh, look, he tripped and rolled down a hill and his gun accidentally went off again. Like, it was just...
You could have him grow as a person as well.
In a longer campaign? Yeah, that would definitely be the plan. He would kind of grow into his actually being... Maybe even become an actual Brotherhood of Steel person instead of like a parody.
You did find a certain Brotherhood of Steel thing. At the end of it, so
which I don't know if anybody wants to give him that.
Who knows?
With as many times as his gun accidentally goes off, you want him in a power armor suit.
Ken or Aaron, is there anything you'd like to see change? Like, could be even system wise or in the game.
I want to see Nurse Handy kind of grow into maybe a little bit so that she accepts a little bit more reality. That might be nice. But at the same time, she was so funny. Shoving goldfish crackers at everybody.
There is a spot in Fallout 4, which I know you haven't played, but there's a Mr. Handy that at the very beginning you start in Fallout 4 pre-war, and you have a Mr. Handy at home. And then when you come out of cryogenic stasis, that same Mr. Handy is there acting like it always did 200 years before. But at one point, there's some dialogue that you can get into the Mr. Handy where he just kind of breaks down. I mean, it's a robot, can't really cry, but their persona cracks and you see kind of the real personality underneath that has suffered through the last 200 years. They weren't always hanging around the house. They went through all of the wasteland around the Commonwealth, scavenging and trying to survive, and happened to be back at the house when you woke up. And I could see something a little bit similar from Nurse Handy happening where she is Nurse 17, which is like she's aware of the passage of time, maybe, but has chosen to ignore it, perhaps, or even maybe there is some damage that is having her stuck there, and maybe some repair at some point has changed her so that she is now more aware of the passage of time, or that not everyone is a child. Yeah, it would be interesting to see. So last question is, would you like to play another arc of this?
I would, yeah.
Yeah, I think we had fun with it. I think he would finally get to fire his gun. I think another area we could experiment with, you and I talked a little bit about it, was the maps. And so zone maps, I think zones an interesting concept. It makes things a lot easier in some cases, and in other cases it breaks your brain a little bit when you're like, well, it's an apartment building and it's all one big zone at extreme, but if you get close enough, as each floor its own zone. I think we played mostly Theater of the Mind, which I think worked out pretty well, but I think, I don't know, sketching out almost like abstract zones, illustrating these different areas on the map so you could just dropping your tokens to the appropriate place. Because we played a couple of different ones. Like in our session 0, you had a full-on map that was like a standard battle map with zones on it. And then for the actual play, I think we just went to Theater of the Mind, except for the last one where you actually had a visual for it. And so I don't know. I think that would be another place to kind of experiment. It just takes more time.
It does take more time. The last one, I didn't mark the zones on it, but I think Theater of the Mind with that visual was able to give you guys an idea of what the zones are in that one.
There wasn't as much interacting with like the environment in Fallout either. And I guess that's probably because game-wise there isn't a whole lot of, I'm going to duck behind this cover and spring out and fire. Like, I feel like we get a lot more of that in Cyberpunk than we do in Fallout. But I'm curious if they have I know they have like a special little cover system.
They do have cover mechanics and other things like that. And I think that's more our being fairly new to the system, is we're not utilizing that side of things. And combat is not as deadly as it is in Cyberpunk. So we don't use it as much.
There is, I just kind of thought about this as we were talking about different systems and stuff like that. I wish that there was, and maybe there is, we just never got into it. Is there a way that you can aim at a particular place? Like, in the video game, you have the VAT system where, like, I'm going to target his right arm, and the aim action doesn't actually let you pick a target like that. And I thought that it would, and it didn't.
There might be a way to do it, but I did not see it in the rulebook. That does not mean it's not there, though. They also have put out a bunch of other supplements to Fallout, and modules and things like that. Okay. And they've added some more rules and other things like optional stuff with each of those expansions. So something like that may be in there.
So I was gonna say, if we did a second arc, I think it would be cool and helpful to kind of have a session 02 where we would sit down and go, so what would you like to do in the next like 5 to 6 episode arc, right? Where I think Cyberpunk, it just sort of naturally led into the next arc. And I think that'll happen with the third arc too, fingers crossed. But with this, I think it would be cool to be like, well, it would be cool if Nurse 17 had this arc, or, Josh wants to switch up his character so a Brotherhood of Steel knight shows up to claim the armor, right? And how do we react with that? And so do you want it to be more scrappy, or do you want to just continue along and say, you know what, we don't really care about salvage, but we do want to get to Boston, or,
Yep.
Thinking.
Yeah, you don't have to stay in the Commonwealth, that's for sure. Yeah.
Right? Think about there's these options, and go back into the rule book, look through and say, okay, so I'd like to play with that. Oh, hey, wait, there's this supplement. Is everybody interested? Cool. So we'll get that and play with that particular aspect, right? If you want to start raising animals because there's an expansion for that, then you go, okay, cool, we're going to start a zoo.
Yep. They really leaned into the Fallout 4 side of things, because you can even start your own settlements and other things like that. So that's definitely possible. I see that much more in the long-term campaign, but if there are desires for that, I think I like that idea of having another session 0 between these two arcs to talk about where do you want to see the game going? What do you want to see for your particular characters? So yeah, I'd like to do that if we do that more. We did get a Minion question, by the way, which is, What snacks pair best with being stuck on guard duty for hours in a damp dungeon?
Goldfish.
No, because I think the goldfish would get soggy though, right?
Depends. I mean, is it one of those ginormous packages of goldfish, or is it like a little individual set of goldfish? They wouldn't get damp, although opening them would be noisy.
Yes, but I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
The answer probably is goldfish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My answer to this is, why are you snacking when you're supposed to be on guard duty?
Also true.
Well, you're mean.
I can be mean. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. Put questions in the comments area on YouTube, or head over to layerofsecrets.com and put a comment on the episode there. If you have answers for our minion, we definitely want to hear those. And if you yourself have an overlord, henchman, or minion question, you can self-classify there. Send those into us. So you can actually send those into us, podcast@layerofsecrets.com, if you want to email us directly. We also have a Discord that you can get access to by going to layerofsecrets.com. All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.